This is Dental All Stars, where we bring you the best in dentistry on marketing, management, and training. Here's your host, Alex Nottingham.
Welcome to Dental All Stars. The topic of this podcast is the patient experience and technology. Our guest is Ryan White. Ryan is Weave's Senior Dental Marketing Manager. He has spent the last decade in helping dental practices optimize their marketing processes. His true passion lies in helping offices maximize the patient experience, resulting in better patient retention, patient care, and overall patient health. Please welcome Ryan.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Well, let's get right into the questions, Ryan. Let's talk about patient experience. We love this topic. What's the patient experience for you? How do you define it, and what are some of the research that you have seen regarding this matter?
Yeah, the patient experience is one of the hot topics, and this is nothing new to just dentistry. This is when you think about patient experience, you can also say customer experience in almost any other business. And it comes down to the idea that people will make decisions, customers and patients, based off emotion, but they justify that based off of logic. And so when you're creating the experiences, what is the interaction between your office and that patient from A to Z? A lot of times we get very myopic with patient experience and we think it's just what happens when they step in the door, but it's so much more than that. It's every interaction that your office has with this customer and even the perceived interactions from patients with your office. And so the key is, if you are an office that is successful, most likely it's because you found a way to create an experience that's memorable, that keeps patients, that keeps you top of mind, and they want to return to you, and they are more willing to accept the treatment care because they trust you, they connect with you, and you have that emotional connection through the entire experience from beginning to end.
I thought it was very interesting. We were talking about this idea between the patient experience versus the patient engagement. Define that for me. How is that different?
Absolutely. Well, think of it this way. The experience is the big picture. That is everything you are doing to create this experience from beginning to end. The engagement is, what is the patient doing on their end? How are they interacting with your office? How are they interacting with your staff? Whether it be from how are they interacting with the appointment reminders? Are they responding yes or no? Are they asking questions before the appointment? Are they filling out the forms before the appointment? Are they booking their appointments online? And then the interaction also, how are they responding to the treatment plans? And what is the conversation when it comes to fees and payments? Those are engagement points, and you can have KPIs that are measuring it, but overall, that is just a bigger part of what is the experience and the control that you have control over the patient experience, whereas the engagement metrics are more about what is the patient and how are they responding to that experience.
Makes sense. So we would like to maximize engagement, essentially.
Absolutely. And you want to measure how they're engaging. It's not just that they're engaging with your office, which is good, but how are they engaging is very important.
Right. You're a master of statistics. Tell me about patients' perceptions and their expectations. How has that changed?
I mean, if you ask any office out there, I believe that they'll tell you, between now and 10 years ago, how dramatically patients' perceptions of dental as well as their expectations have changed. In fact, we do a report every year where we survey hundreds of offices and thousands of patients, and we kind of pull in what are the overall thoughts and sentiment. And one of the things we saw in this year's, the 2023 report, was that 43% of patients are delaying treatment or care due to affordability concerns or concerns about the market in general. And alongside of that, you have 93% of practices that are planning to raise their prices or already have raised their prices. In fact, 30% of them have raised them within the last 30 days. And so you're seeing what is the overall experience, or what is the sentiment of between patients and dental offices. 32% of offices are saying that patients' expectations have increased dramatically since the pandemic, with 39% of those people saying that they're patients are less reasonable than they were a year ago. So here we have this macroeconomics going on between patients are now expecting more out of their dental office, and at the same time they're also concerned about the value, they're concerned about the price. And so if you're an office, these are a lot of things you can't impact. You can't control the macroeconomics of the world. You can't control the concerns and fears of patients. That's not within your realm. Now, what you can do is you can address them. And that's why patient experience is so important, because that's the one thing you can control. You can control the value that your practice is giving, especially if you're thinking about raising prices, or if you already have you asked that question, like, am I raising prices? Am I also raising value? Am I being able to showcase that value to patients so that if they see a raise in prices compared to a few years ago, they understand that and they actually feel like it's in line with the value that they're receiving and the care that they're receiving.
So it sounds like you were alluding to these industry trends with the patient experience. Are there others that are noteworthy?
Well, there's the technological trends that we're seeing. And this is just something that has evolved just with technology itself. Patients preferring to have the appointment reminders being sent and communicate with offices. I mean, if you ask this, we have these reports from years ago versus now, and 93% of patients prefer actually interacting by text, which is a big thing. As well as you have my generation, which is not even putting these things into their calendar anymore because they know they're going to get a text. And so they're like, okay, well, I'll just put a quick date into my calendar. But then they're expecting that text to come to remind them, 7 days before, to be like, oh, make sure your calendar's free because you have this appointment.
That's so true.
Absolutely. And the big one I'm seeing in these last couple of years are online scheduling. When you think about the patient experience, now, once again, you want to think about what happens when they're in the office, but it's more than that. How is the patient interacting with you? How are they interacting with your website? Are you offering the capability to actually schedule an appointment online, or at least request one? This is something you're going to see continually over these next couple of years become more of a standard, where patients want to have that control, a little bit of that control and power in their hands, so they can at least request appointments. Because when people are on the computers, when they're on their mobile, the most frequent time is between 9 p.m. and 11 p.m. as well. Your office isn't open at that time. So they can put a reminder in their phone to say, oh, remember to call the office tomorrow and try to schedule an appointment. Or if you have that experience where they have the ability and the power to request an appointment, or they can text your office and say, hey, I would like to schedule a cleaning, when are availabilities, that is a positive interaction that the patient now has. And another reason that they choose you, because it's just, you're making things easier for them. You're making it comfortable and convenient.
Yeah, when you mentioned the technology with text messages, my chiropractor, for example, their text message reminders went down, and it really threw me off because I'm like, where are those messages? I rely on that. Yes, it's on the calendar. And then I went to my dentist's office today, and yeah, it was fun. And I love the text reminders. And what's nice about it is, so for the next cleaning to book, instead of having the book, I know I'm going to get a reminder soon to get me to go ahead and comply. So
Absolutely.
It's really
that age-old question, like, are you available 6 months from now? You're like, I have no idea. I don't even know what I'm doing next week. But you have that expectation, like, it's okay. I'm going to get the text reminder. I can make sure my calendar's free when I get there.
Yeah, it's really stressful. That's interesting. I love to hear Larry's perspective, our scheduling guru, because it's all about reducing broken appointments. And like booking 6 months out, it's so stressful. I don't know, like you said, I don't know what I'm doing, and then I have to rely on that. But what's nice with the text message, when you're getting close, then you can adjust and start to make that movement in that realm. What other technological insights do you have?
Well, those would be the big ones. But what you're also seeing is, especially with this market where staffing is getting harder and more challenging, you're seeing how do people become most efficient in their job. Now, when you talk about the patient experience, I like to brag about dental here, because if you go into like your audiology clinic, or your I went to the podiatrist recently, as well as a chiropractor. Dental has always been very business focused. They have to be in order to stay in business. So one of the ways that they are business focused is they focus on that experience. And when you go into your chiropractor, I went in and I'm still filling out a form, online. I'm not filling it online. I'm doing the clipboard. So the first interaction I have when I step into that office, and you think as a new patient, I'm walking in, they're asking who my name is, where I am, what time I have my appointment for. Then I'm filling out the first 10 minutes, filling out this form while I'm sitting in a couch. That is becoming a very outdated experience. And one of the things that you're seeing is, how can we optimize the time that this patient is in the office? So are you using digital forms so that when that patient is in the office, it's now a one-on-one connection? You only have so much time with that patient, and you really want to take advantage of that. Having friendly staff that when they come in, they know who they are, they greet them, and instead of just handing them a clipboard and say, here's your homework for the next 10 minutes, it's, hey, let's talk about you. How is your day? Everything's going. Those are building those human connections that people want. And the medical industry is still catching up in that regard. And dentistry really is leading the forefront of that. But you have that specific digital forms is big. And the other one is that on the flip side, offices, specifically office managers and other people in the front desk, are seeing that they have more and more to do. Now, the problem is when you have more and more to do, but at the same time push the patient experience, you have two different things competing for your time. So what can technology do to help free up time? What can it automate? What can I outsource essentially so that when that patient comes in, I can focus on that one-on-one time. I'm not just on the phone all the time and then I do a quick like, oh, the doctor's ready to see you. It's more of that communication, moving them from the next to, the front office to the operatory. And what can technology do so that I'm not bombarded with a to-do list while patients are in my practice?
That's very helpful. Well, you have a say in technology. What are some of these technological systems? We mentioned text messages are a great way. Online scheduling is an option. Now, I see some like active and passive online scheduling. Like passive is you fill out a form and you make a request of where you'd like to be, and more active is you really can block one out. Any comments on that?
That's a fun topic. That's a fun topic because it's hard to give that power away, to give your patients full control over your schedule. That's really hard. And while it's very convenient for the patient, at the same time, is that optimal for your practice? It may or may not be. And so you do have that passive and active where you can request an appointment and you kind of select a few times and then they get back to you. Or you can have that full, just like a restaurant where you actually book that expected time and that's what you plan on coming in. That one's a hard topic. And I think we're going to get there and it's going to become more and more active as it gets there with some guardrails. But either way, if you have that ability that gives that patient at least a little bit of power, you're going to find that you're going to get those appointments come through much easier. And if they're booking that appointment themselves, it's going to be much easier for them to commit to it rather than just in the office, which is obviously important. While they're in the office, you want to get them to schedule to their next appointment. But giving that power away a little bit will actually empower your office to have a better experience.
Excellent. What other technology? We mentioned text, scheduling. Are there others that we can use to, because I look at the patient experience and I look at technology as, well, the technology is a way to remove some barriers, to the patient experience. Because what is it? I heard this before. Eric, our president of coaching, talked about friction, and you want to have a friction-less office where there's not so much friction. Like you mentioned, you went to the chiropractor office and you're signing forms. That's friction. There's all these barriers to get over to get what you need. So how can we reduce friction in an office and improve the patient experience?
A couple of ways. One, is there any moments of friction or areas where people are backing out or not completing, for example, forms, et cetera. But then the other part is if you're going to add a little bit of friction, you have to make sure you add more connection. Because the more connection you have with a patient, that's where that friction is no longer an obstacle. One of the technologies I'm really loving right now is just automation. What can you do as far as, can you schedule text messages? Can you schedule messages or create message templates that you're using over and over again? How do you implement that? And now we're seeing, some buzzwords, chat GTP. How do you start using other tools to make it so you're not spending an hour a day trying to craft messages or think about them, but you can do it once, you can brainstorm, you can use some technology to help that. You can book all your appointments, and get those messages ready and then just schedule them. So that way you have an hour of free time. You can schedule your messages for the whole next week and then it just runs by itself. The big one I'm loving is, and this is obviously Weave is involved with this, is insurance verification. I've had so many interviews with customers where they talk about horror stories of being on hold with insurance companies, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour, or even just spending time on the website just trying to get all the insurance verified before the patient comes in the next day. But that is starting to be simplified. We're starting to get where insurances are willing to share information, and through integrations, you can actually do some automated insurance verification, and then it just flags you on, hey, I couldn't, verify the insurance, check with the patient or check with the individual provider. And if you're freeing up that amount of time so that your front office is not spending 4 or 5 hours a day, in fact, several offices have an insurance coordinator. If you're able to free up that time, what you're able to do is take, what can we do with that time? Can that person now start pushing the patient experience? Can they start developing different marketing ideas? So you're just redirecting their focus to something that is more productive. And that comes down to the top question is, does your office prioritize the patient experience? And that starts at the top.
I like what you're saying because there's fear about AI, and a lot of what Weave does has technology included, right? You link with their practice management software. You're able to make it more seamless, less friction. There's reminder processes. And I love what you said. You said what's great about these technologies is it frees you up to do the soft skills to provide the patient experience, because a legitimate excuse is we're really busy and we're having to do so much manual labor, insurance verification, reminders. And if technology can ease that burden, we have an opportunity to train our office, onboard our office, comprehensively train on phone skills, on scheduling, on rapport building skills, right? Plug for All-Star Dental Academy, right? Do your online training. But again, I think I'm like an excuse buster. That's probably my CEO, AKA excuse buster. There's always an excuse. I can't train because I don't have the right people. Well, we help with hiring. We'll do that. Okay. I can't train because I'm too busy. Well, get Weave to offload a lot of the technology stuff and then start training, because that's where human beings are best utilized. So far, AI and technology has not replaced the warm-blooded interaction. I was talking with the hygienist today in my doctor's office, and she was saying that she's very interested in telemedicine for dentistry. Well, that's fine to some extent, but you got to probe the teeth. You got to do something with the mouth. It's different if I have a tummy ache and I can assess. There's some telemedicine you can do with dentistry, but dentistry is going to be for a while a hands-on experience until we have robots that will, go through your mouth. But that's going to be a while. So the point is, here's another point though, Ryan, and I think you're going to be strong on this. And I know you're a big fan of technology. That's what your company does. But we can rely too much on technology and say, okay, well, Weave is going to do it all for me. I don't have to work anymore. I don't have to give the patient experience. I can go be late. I can sit back and, be lazy, or what I don't say lazy, but complacent is a better word for it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I think of it this way, and I'm going to borrow a phrase from one of our friends, is she talks about paperwork versus people work. Technology is going to help you do paperwork. It's going to help you do tedious tasks or processes. Like when you think about it, I talked about this one customer, we're chatting about 20 years ago, and they talked about how they used to create customer ledgers and had this giant calendar that spanned 4 feet that went all across their desk. That was paperwork. And having digital and technology replace that is really where its focus is. And now you can redirect and say, what is important? People work, connection, talking with the patient, selling them whitening. Any of these areas where you want to focus on, where really are going to have the biggest impact on your business, is not like whether or not they got a text message. That's convenient. But ultimately, it's how did they feel when they were in your office, which is why I say the patient experience encompasses the whole. But at the same time, a very important part of that whole is what happens when they're in your office. When you think about what is the biggest commodity in today's world, it's people's time. There is so much they can do with their time, and we have conditioned ourselves with, I can do this, I can do that, I can be binging a show right now instead of doing this. Time has become the most valuable resource. And so when you have to have someone set aside their time to come to your practice, they have to feel like it was a value-driven activity, that it was something not only beneficial to their health, but it wasn't a waste of their time. What can you do with your time if you were given more of it? How can you redirect that focus towards patients? If technology is able to do a lot of the tedious tasks, you can now say with your office and empower your members and your team to brainstorm ways to increase that experience. For example, I have one office that when they're able to have more time, they were able to diagnose and find these areas to increase the patient experience. They had one patient that couldn't go on a trip to Mexico that he talked about previously. Well, because that office had time to connect with him, talk about that history, talk about that vacation, the next time that person came in, which was only a week later, they were able to throw an entire party for everyone. They did margarita mix all day long. They had Jimmy Buffett, blasting over the radios. This is a very special one-on-one patient experience that they're able to share with others. And the reason why they're able to do this is because they had time to talk to the patient. They had time to really get in and know their experience. And this office has thousands of those stories. And what drives that is one, it's pushed from the top. Patient experience is king, and this needs to be our focus. And two, they actually have the time to really find these opportunities to do that.
Wow. I really it's always fun meeting new experts out there. People work versus paperwork. I learned something new today. I love that line. In summary, you're getting rid of some of the paperwork so you can invest in the people work. And like I said before, I think we're using technology inappropriately when we say we would like it to do both. It will do the paperwork. We then have to use the people time to get better and use it not as a crutch technology, but as a supporting system, if that makes sense. It's a friend to improve the title and the topic of today, the patient experience. Ryan, I really appreciate you being on this podcast, and we're going to have Weave at our next event. We're really excited to have, and I'm working hard to get Ryan over there as well.
I'm trying.
It'd be great to have a senior marketer at the event, so we can get Ryan. That will be great. But at least we will have Weave representation. You guys are doing great things in dentistry. We really appreciate you and your time. I'll put a link in the show notes to getweave.com for those that are interested to learn more about this great tool to help automate your business. And again, thank you, Ryan. And please remember, everyone, to follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And the more reviews and comments on our show page, and most importantly, the more of you that follow us, the more great content we can make for all of you and your dental buddies in dentistry. Until next time, go out there and be an all-star.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Dental All-Stars. Visit us online at allstardentalacademy.com.